Cool. So tell me what film that we're going to be talking about today and by whom?
So we'll be talking about my film, Long About Midnight 2. It's a slasher kind of throwback type horror film.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And who are you lovely individuals?
My name's Becca, and I did the makeup for the film, and I was one of the producers.
Fun.
My name's Jay. I was a producer on it.
You're the executive producer.
I was the executive producer on it I was about to say associate, but I was
you're
executive.
executive.
And I also, I ended up playing the killer on that one, too.
Yes. Cool.
I'm the guy in the pumpkin mask.
Yes, yes.
Cool. And yourself?
I wrote and directed it.
Wrote and directed it. Cool. And then introduce yourself.
Oh, yes. Hi, my name's Matt Bond.
Matt,
yes.
Bond.
I'm Becca Maines.
Yes.
Jay Garrick.
Awesome. Cool. And Long About Midnight.
Yes.
Fun.
2. It's a sequel.
Two.
Yeah, you know.
Thank you. So, let's start with titles. Why that title?
So that title came. There's sort of a couple different variations to it. I wanted the term midnight to be in there because I think midnight as a concept is with horror and everything. It's sort of a spooky hour. But in the movie itself, that title came from. It's set on Halloween night. It's a very Halloween-centric piece. And in the original Disney Headless Horseman cartoon, there's a song in there where there's a lyric. It's long about midnight, the ghosts and banshees get together for a nightly jamboree, and that phrase "long about midnight" really stuck out to me. And I just thought it was a nice kind of eerie, atmospheric name for a movie.
Yeah, it really is. It's a good title. Titles are big. I think they're overlooked a lot by the audience, even by ourselves sometimes. But like it's big, and so they always mean something. And so we're gonna get into that into a second. But I have a question. Were you two also on the first?
I was not in the
No.
first one.
But
I was an associate producer.
Yeah,
on that one.
we filmed at your house for the first one.
And the second one.
Yes, and the second one. And then
I wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
The main party sequence in almost the entire.
The bulk of the middle of the movie.
Yeah. In the first one.
Oh, the
entire thing was filmed at our house.
At your house, yeah.
And then years later, the bulk of the middle, there's a party that's at our. Was it meant to be the same house?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. All right. Awesome. Now getting back to the film itself. So like, titles are often overlooked, and so I want to always lead with that question, right? Well, why
That's a great
that title?
question.
What about this title? Now, for you as the writer, what part of this film or project for you felt the most personal? Like, where did anything come from a personal place or personal experience where you're like, I would love to explore that creatively?
So I love John Carpenter. I love that early slasher era, the early Friday the 13th, your early Halloweens. And I always wanted to kind of play around in that world and sort of see, how that felt. And so right out of college, I made the first Long About Midnight. And it was good for the time, but looking back, I realized this doesn't age great. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know that I was learning. And so what's cool about this one is it released exactly 5 years after the first movie. Cool. So it's sort of me revisiting this concept after 5 years. And kind of a big thing with kind of how I approach this movie is I think modern horror is great. I love modern horror. I feel like some modern horror gets bogged down a bit in, well, everything has to mean something. Everything has to represent something. The killer has to represent like what's going on in our world or society. And I kind of missed the era of, it's a very stripped down, simple movie about ordinary people who are thrust into this crazy, chaotic situation. And it's kind of just the everyman having to rise to the challenge.
Interesting. It's interesting that you put it that way, especially with slashers. So for you, on a personal note, you love slashers. You love the classics. So what is your favorite thing about those type of films? Like, what in that genre stands out the most to you?
Yeah, it's the mantra that Hitchcock had that I've sort of really adopted in a lot of my stuff is he would always say the movies he made were putting ordinary people in extraordinary situations and kind of watching either these people rise to the challenge or fall short. And I think that's sort of what I love about that genre specifically is, it's not like a supernatural thing. It's very much a real thing that could, obviously it's exaggerated in the films, but this could really happen to anyone. So I think it's really easy to sort of step into those characters' shoes, into that scenario and go, what would I do in this situation? If I encountered this in an alleyway or at a party or something.
Well, was it Stephen King on writing that talked about like some of the hardest things where a lot of writers fall short is you create these characters, you love these characters, and now the hardest part is you have to do terrible things.
Yeah.
But like the ability to just like create these characters and just thrust them into a horrific situation and see what happens.
Yeah. Interesting. What is your favorite classic?
Halloween, the original Halloween.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm a big It fan.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I like both the miniseries and the new, but I would say that's my number one.
Really hard to say. A slasher flick, I'm not exactly sure, but my favorite horrors would probably be like Evil Dead 2 and The Thing would be really high on my list. I think I like monsters, witchcraft, that kind of end of it.
Cool. I think the first movie that actually scared me was It.
Yeah.
It was the first thing. Like, horror for me never. It's always like comedy. Actually, like since a kid, it was like, oh my god, it's so funny. But It reshaped my head. I was like, my introduction to psychological. Right.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
What do you hope in this film, or what you've done with it and the execution, resonates the most with the audience or impacts the audience? Like what do you think for you that might be?
Yeah, because I've screened it in front of an audience a couple times now, and I think audiences are, it's coming off, and this isn't a bad thing, I'm happy with it, but I think it's coming off more comedic than I even intended, but not in like a bad way, but in a, there's a lot of like, I think endearing character moments, and that are getting bigger laughs than I thought, and
people are delighted.
Yes, and I think the hero's journey of our main character, people are kind of really attaching to, which I like. There's a lot of cheering sort of at the finale of the movie, when he overcomes and takes down the killer. So I think people are connecting with the characters that I created far more than I initially anticipated, which is about the best thing that can happen. Yeah.
And I mean, as a writer, that's something that on all fronts, like it's just received differently by different audiences. And you're always surprised by what people find amusing or enlightening. It's like, oh, I didn't know.
It's and I feel like it's with a lot of stuff, because I would say this is a horror comedy. Definitely. It's not straight grim doom and gloom. There's a lot of comedy in it with the characters. But there were moments where, jokes that I had written, I was like, oh, this is going to be a good one. People will chuckle. But then there were little throwaway lines that I just threw in there, and those get like the biggest laughs. So it's interesting to kind of see what elements of the characters people attach themselves to.
Yeah. And since we're on it, transitioning into, the process of creating, for you as a writer, what do you think was the most difficult process in finishing the piece?
Yeah, I think with any of the stuff I write, it's, because you start with a story, and it's really hard to go, okay, this is the element I want the story to go, but now I have to truncate it into a 20-page script, an 18-page script. And, really, I mean, kind of like what you were saying with what Stephen King's comment, but kind of in the real world of, oh, I have all these moments and all these characters that I love, and now I have to cut some characters out, I have to cut some moments out. And getting to a piece that you feel like is still fulfilling and captures the full vision, but is way more truncated and scaled down. Because
when your fingers are just flying on a page, and all of a sudden you're like, crap, it's 40 pages.
Like I can't.
I don't have the budget, I don't have the time.
And I mean, even with this one, there was a whole subplot that we shot in the movie that was completely cut out in post. And it was a bummer because it was a really good subplot, but it was just, it wasn't connecting in a way I think that really worked. So,
it didn't flow. The pacing was effective.
So, having to just, kind of lose stuff that you thought was going to be integral.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how did you two end up on the project?
What did we work on together first?
Well, the first thing we worked on, ironically, was about probably 6 or 7 years ago. I wrote a slasher script that we started on.
Oh yes,
and
it didn't actually.
And that was way too ambitious for where I was at that point. And then I sort of took ideas and recontextualized it, and that's sort of where the first Long About Midnight came from, was a scaled down version of that.
Yeah.
So if I had finished that movie back then, I probably would have buried it, because I think it would have just been way too much and just not great.
Ever since then, he'll shoot me scripts in different phases of being finished and say, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
And we collaborate really well.
Yeah.
And he just comes to me with projects that I never would have thought of myself.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, hey, what do you think of this? And I'll be like, this is amazing. And he'll say, do you want to be a part of it? And it's like, of course I do. Who would say no to this?
Yeah.
And so I just get to tag along.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how about you?
Well, we've known each other for a long
Yes.
time, but I would say Space Mechanic.
Yeah, that was a sci-fi one I made a couple
I
years
was
ago.
an actor in that.
Yes.
And I was like 19.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yes.
a while ago. But, and then I got more into makeup and special
Yes.
effects. And so I just became your go-to
Yes.
makeup person.
Yes.
It's really fun.
Yes. You're also my fiance, so that has that has something to do with it too. But you know,
I was wondering if we were avoiding that for some reason.
we were engaged by the time you were filming.
yes, yes,
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I think just it's been project after project
yeah,
since then, and
yeah.
Nice.
Matt exists at the intersection of a lot of things where like you said this last night, like it's important to just like get it done.
Yeah.
Just do it, just make it happen.
Yeah.
And I've worked with different directors, I've fallen in with different independent directors, and they always end up self-sabotaging in some way or another. But Matt really just he gets an idea, he jumps in with both feet, and he gets it done. And he's actually like he's becoming a very prolific creator.
Oh,
and he's like,
well, you're an efficient director too.
Yeah,
sure.
It's
like he
not like a
really
one-shot
makes it
wonder,
happen.
but I feel like shooting days are really like he knows what he wants and what he's going for, and like you're really able to communicate with your actors in a way where it's like 2 takes and that's it.
Yeah.
Like a shot that's going to be it, and then one for scene.
Yeah. Well, and I think a big part of that is some of this movie and a lot of my earlier stuff was very guerrilla shooting, no permits, so you just kind of get good at really figuring out. I need to get what I need to do in 30 minutes, or else the cops are going to be here and we're going to have to we're going to have to get out of here.
Yeah.
But I think also a big part of how my approach might be different than other people is I don't really consider myself a professional writer. I'm professionally an editor, a cinematographer, and a director. So the stuff I write is really so I can showcase those other talents. So I think what's beneficial for that is, I'm not harping over, oh, this script isn't perfect, the dialogue isn't 100%, flawless, it's where I need to be, where it just, it gets to a point where it's like, this is the vision I want to get through, and there's going to be stuff on set that we're going to tweak and figure out.
Yeah.
But it's, the writing is obviously an important part for me, but it's the actual making of it and the post of it is the big thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very interesting perspective for a lot of filmmakers who feel like they have to be one thing. And I mean, obviously, it's great to focus and zone in.
Yeah, absolutely.
With what your craft is, but a lot of directors will be afraid to write something to direct, so they're waiting for something to come across their desk. Some people might be like, oh, I want to do makeup and stuff, but like I don't have any projects around me, and they might be afraid to write something themselves where they can, showcase that. So it's really important and interesting perspective with you laying that out. This question is a little bit more creative in nature because I'm just curious from all of you.
Sure.
And this is a question I like to ask filmmakers a lot. If this film, and your respective role in the project, if this film was a painting, what would it look like?
Interesting.
I think there's in the end of the film, there's a scene where our protagonist seemingly kills the killer, and then he's like having like a flashback, and he like looks up, and it's all his face, and he starts screaming because the killer has like magically disappeared.
As they always do.
And it like cuts to where like the killer's body was, just his mask with the knife in it. Yeah. And I think that is a great like image.
That's cool imagery.
The whole piece where it's just it doesn't tell too much. Like it kind of piques interest.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know. It's kind of an eerie image in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like for me the image that comes to mind is like I don't want to say Picasso, but like a distorted jack-o'-lantern is kind of what comes to mind, because I feel like this movie is very much, there's a Halloween party and there's, trick-or-treating and all that stuff. So I think kind of it's like a warped version of like what is usually like a fun and, exciting night for people. And I feel like this movie is kind of, very nostalgic in that sense, sort of stuff that you knew growing up and all that things, but it's kind of been tilted on its head.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mind went to like the 60s collage pop art Rosenquist, I think
Sure.
is the guy's name.
Sure.
That he'll do these sort of painting, yes, but they feel very collage-like.
Yeah.
So you get you can kind of cram a lot of sort of in your face.
Yeah.
Like it's pop art because of pop culture, but
Yeah.
like his stuff is usually kind of love lettering
Yeah,
genres.
For sure.
And so he kind of he has these like imagery that I'm not trying to be punny, but like that pops out at you. Like you were saying, like the pumpkin with the knife, the mask with the knife out of it at the end, and like there's these sort of like in your face things that just pop out at you. So like Rosenquist's walls of collage stuff
it's a colorful
seems
movie
fitting
too.
Yes.
It's very colorful.
Very colorful.
Like the lighting is.
Yeah, sort of a style that I kind of didn't even really mean to do, but I've sort of just naturally fallen into, is I really like lighting scenes with unnatural colors. Like I like lighting scenes, with purples and blues and kind of having those be the key lights almost. So it's the characters are kind of always bathed in non-natural light.
That's That's really interesting.
Yeah.
What would you say was the I don't want to put it in the generic, like what was the most difficult process during the production of this, but what gave you the most headache?
I think probably what gave me the most headache on this one was,
Let's see if I know what you're going to say, because I think I know what you're going to say.
No, you're fine. You're off the hook.
Not where I went.
No. I missed
that.
We'll circle back to you afterwards. I had filmed shorts that had a scene or two at night, but this was really the first thing that I had shot that was fully in the dark. And so, having ideas of, this lighting setup will work for this scene, and then getting on set and realizing, oh, this is not nearly as much light as I thought it was going to be, or this is like, and finding that fine line of the scene's dark and moody, but it's not dark enough that you can't see what's going on, but it's also not too light that it then deflates the tension. So I think that was
like turning the lights on in Space Mountain.
Ruins
the
effect.
Yeah,
really playing with sort of shadow and darkness in a way that created an atmosphere but didn't obstruct the image. I think that was, and kind of learning, for a handful of days learning, on set, on location, that this isn't. I tested this lighting, in a certain way, but on the day with different bodies in the room, it wasn't quite working. So sort of really quickly adapting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that last fight scene in the church was your first that was
choreographed
scene.
Big fight.
Cuts? How many cuts in that one?
We shot in about 3 hours. I think we did about 120 shots.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was fast.
Yeah,
it was fast.
that was for where we were at.
Yeah.
In our experience
at
the time, that was an ambitious scene.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. So before we wrap, I have a few more questions for you two. I want to know what during the process, or about even the final product, or overall from the beginning to where you are now, being aboard this project, what do you think you learned the most?
I can go first.
If you have your answer locked
do.
and loaded, go for it.
There's blood.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I know.
In a slasher?
No way.
And I think my biggest thing, because I've done makeup in films before, but mainly historical pieces. That's my big, my favorite thing. And when I work on those, I really try to focus on how accurate it needs to be. I'm not looking for pretty. I'm looking for what would this actually look like. And I think with horror, sometimes people are like, oh, let's just use as much blood as we possibly can. And I think sometimes the more horrific shots are the ones where it's just so specifically placed. Where because that looks a little bit more real, it just kind of makes you squeamish. But I would say using the certain amounts of blood that you needed, and the church scene was shot entirely in a carpeted room.
Yes.
And so trying to place the blood where it won't get on the carpet
was tricky.
A challenge. And getting
and
the
we
blood
know the
to
custodian and he knows where to find us.
Yes.
Actually, in the parking lot, I think that there is still
there is
a little
in the church we shot it. There's still a little quarter-sized blood stain because no one caught it and it just dried there. And
and there's a scene where there's blood that drips on the mask
Yeah.
And like that was a shot where we had to time it right.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
the temperature of the room and the
Yeah.
temperature of the
Yeah.
blood to make
Yeah.
sure that we got that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And how about for you?
Well, one thing I learned with varying success is to remember that I am married.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I need to know whether or not I need to take my wedding ring off.
Yes. That was
what you thought I was gonna say earlier.
That was the off the hook thing I mentioned earlier, because this was a very run and gun shoot even still. So small screw scale done. So we didn't really have a full continuity department on this one. And in post, there were several shots where our fearsome killer was wearing his beautiful wedding ring.
We actually noticed it in the middle of a shoot, and we had to like put our heads together. And we're like, so
is he married?
can this character be married?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Is that
So
something we can allow?
It was, So this weirdly, because I've done a handful of sci-fi in the past, and that's very CGI heavy.
Yeah.
And this one I was like, great, a simple film, not a lot of CGI.
Yeah.
And it was probably the most because I was painting out wedding rings.
My wedding ring out frame by frame
for several shots.
For a decent amount of footage.
Yes.
But there were a couple things though that I did. I had taken stage combat years ago, and I've gotten to participate in that, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Having those they are dance sequences that you're having with your fellow actors. But this was the first time I think I was responsible for like safety, like making sure he told me what he wanted to happen and how he wanted it to look, and it was like putting our heads together with him and with the other actors, like how do we do this and make sure that it stays safe. And even me in the mask, a lot of the times I can't see what I'm doing, and so the onus is actually on the other actors to and so there were different shots. There's a shot where I come up behind an actress, and I have to. She has the knife.
Yeah, it's like a pumpkin carving thing.
Pumpkin carving knife, and I have to grab and stab her. But really, she had to be the one in charge of that action because I can't see enough. And that was that wasn't a prop. That was one of those little knives that like it could hurt her. Not seriously probably, but it was problematic. And so working through that was a challenge that I felt pretty proud of by the time we're all done.
Yeah.
And also getting back to the mask, not being able to see. I feel like this is getting too ethereal with the actor and practicing my craft. And I kind of hate getting into the weeds with that, but being in a mask and not being the camera can't see me what I'm actually doing. So trying to figure out how to communicate with body
it's a different style of
language
acting.
Certainly in The Mandalorian, it gave me greater appreciation for what the body double has to do when you can't see with the person. All you have is body language. And so it was kind of just interesting to play in that.
I think it's important that you mention that because a lot of people forget that the craft of acting is vast. And a lot of people think that we just see the standard actor, and I also teach acting, and so
very cool.
and so physical acting is a whole different it's a
Like,
whole
how you
different
communicate.
world, and what's
Like
interesting
that.
is the majority of actors who exist don't practice that craft until they have to experience a role like that. So, even being classically trained, a lot of people don't get the opportunity, depending on where you're studying, to physically act, right? So,
It was just
it's important that you.
I've never, I use it, of course. I think about body language and what I'm communicating with my stances and walks and things like that. But it was the first time that was all I had, and it was just it was an interesting experiment. It was
it's
fun.
a very, very interesting experience, and that's. So I'm glad that you point that out. For you,
yes,
and I think this is important for filmmakers, new and experienced, to revisit often. From beginning to end of this project, actually I'll just say the beginning, before actually going into production, can you just briefly speak on some of the thoughts, fears? What do you think were some of the biggest fears or things that you had going into actually making this movie?
Sure. I think the biggest probably fears, challenges, however you want to say it, for this one was really, because this was the first time I had done, or one of the first times I'd done a true sequel to something I'd done earlier, and really making sure that what I was writing and the story I was telling was truly a step up and better than the first one.
Yeah.
Because, I didn't want to just make something with two at it, just to say, to make something. So that was definitely a struggle. But also finding a film and a story and characters that would resonate with people who even had never seen the first one, you know, and having it stand on its own, I think was a big challenge and sort of a hard thing to come by. But, you know, and then also just kind of the, you know, kind of facing that, you know, this movie needs to evolve and be something different than what I've done before, you know, and with, you were saying, you know, with the fight scene in the end and everything, you know, and kind of writing this script that I knew had incredibly daunting moments. You know, there's a full choreographed fight at the end, there's a full party scene, you know, and this was by far the most ambitious thing I had done. It was the longest script I'd written at the time.
At that point.
Yeah, at that point, you know, and so really kind of approaching that and entering this kind of new step in this new era in my filmmaking journey.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. And then my final question for you is, finally being where you are with the project, what are some of your thoughts and feelings toward being able to just, I mean, do what you're doing, right? Show it to different audiences in different festivals, and then just to see the finished product. Like, how does that resonate with you? What does that that feel?
Oh, it's incredibly rewarding because this is the first movie of mine that I've seen on like larger screens and everything. So that is really powerful. And I think I texted you this when I was about halfway through post. This was really the first thing that I've made that I've watched where it was like, oh, this feels like a movie.
Yeah.
You know, to me, you know, this doesn't feel, you know, it's, I'm looking at shots and moments and it's like, yeah, you know, this looks like, it took me back to, you know, this feels like something I would watch years ago and be like, oh, I wish I could get to that level, that composition, that storytelling. Because, you know, everything before I feel like for me felt like this, you know, this feels like a short film I made. You know, which good or bad, but this, watching it really felt like this, you know, this feels like a movie, and getting that in front of audiences who are reacting in different ways is incredibly rewarding because it's, you know, it feels like people are feeling that too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that you say that and you mention that, because early in our journey as filmmakers, our first projects, we tend to go into it with a mindset of imposter syndrome. You know? And it reflects.
Absolutely.
It reflects on the work.
Absolutely.
So, having that experience, like you said, wow, this is the first thing I'm watching for myself that feels like, oh, I'm watching, you know, a movie. That's a really rewarding experience to have. And I hope whoever's watching and hears that, that ignites something in them, because what a lot of people have to feel and get used to is the sensation of finishing. You know, because once you do, you're like, oh, wait, I am. And you know, you mentioned earlier, like, I don't consider myself a professional writer, but you are. Right? Because as a writer, you have provided opportunities for so many other people who worked on your project. Right? And if you hadn't written anything, you yourself wouldn't have had anything to direct. Right? You wouldn't have had the makeup to do, you wouldn't have the producing to do, or the acting to do, right? So because you actually stepped forward and, like they said, you finish, you do it, right? You just do it. You are, from professional writer to writer, you are a professional writer.
Appreciate that.
Because you're providing opportunities with your stories and your ideas. So, and it sounds like you're loved by, you know.
We have fun. We have fun.
Cool. So, anyway, thank you for
thank you.
sitting with me, showing your film, and being a part of I.F.B's film festival.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of good stuff going on, and a lot of good work, and so I'm excited that you guys got to see your stuff, like you said, now on bigger screens with audiences and stuff. So I'm happy for you all and for you in this journey. And it sounds like you've been creating more stuff since finishing this already.
Yes.
I'm not a professional writer. But you're going and you're doing it. So anyway, thank you, and much appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Amazing. Great.
Cool. Thank
Beautiful.
you, folks.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. That was great.